Stakeknife, the Army's most high-ranking agent within the IRA. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Vincent Kearney is here. What led up to today?
Well, Seamus, for years there were rumours that the Army had a high-ranking agent working at the very heart of the IRA in Belfast. His code name was Stakeknife. That agent is now said to have been involved in the murders of at least 24 people. Now, 12 years ago, the BBC and other media named him as a West Belfast bricklayer, Freddie Scappaticci. Now, it's a claim he has repeatedly denied. Now, for legal reasons, Seamus, the police, the Ministry of Defence and Intelligence Services won't confirm or deny if he was an Army agent. The Director of Public Prosecutions has also said today that he can't comment. But today he announced that he's asked the Chief Constable to launch an investigation into the alleged activities of the agent codenamed Stakeknife. Now, that decision was taken after the PPS received a file setting out the findings of a 2-year investigation by the Police Ombudsman. That inquiry linked Stakeknife to at least 24 murders. I understand that number could eventually, potentially double. Now, Barry McGrory today outlined the scope of the investigations he's asked the Chief Constable to conduct.
This will seek to examine the full range of potential offences that may have been committed by this individual. It will also include an investigation of any potential criminal activity that may have been carried out by security service and intelligence personnel. At this point, it may be helpful to provide some background to this decision. I have recently been made aware of the scope and range of possible offences that may have been carried out by this individual. This information has been made available to me by the Office of the Police Ombudsman and Dr. Maguire himself, where they are now concluding a painstaking review of all material emanating from the 3 investigations carried out by Lord Stevens into allegations of collusion.
How significant is this?
This is hugely significant. The allegations against Stakeknife and his handlers have been described as colossal. In addition to investigating allegations about the activities of Stakeknife himself, this will also examine allegations against those within the Army, Military Intelligence, MI5 and RUC Special Branch who handled Stakeknife or received information that he passed on. It's been alleged he was protected from prosecution because he was regarded as the Army's most valuable asset within the IRA. Now, Barry McGrory says these are the most significant allegations he's dealt with during his time as Director of the Public Prosecution Service. I understand this could be the largest ever investigation into the activities of one individual.
Do we know anything about the nature of the allegations that have been made?
We do have a little detail, as I said. We know allegations have been made that Stakeknife's handlers allowed him to kill with impunity, that he didn't pass on information that could have saved lives. Now, the Police Ombudsman Michael Maguire today outlined the nature of allegations that have been made about former RUC officers who either worked directly with Stakeknife or received some of the information that he passed on.
We're talking about very serious allegations in terms of potential for police culpability, conspiracy to murder, perversion of the course of justice. And we're talking indeed about at least 24 murders being conducted by this unit within the IRA. That is huge significance, not only for the police, but also other agencies.
And the Chief Constable has been asked to conduct this investigation. What's the PSNI saying?
So far, nothing. Barry McGrory, we're told, spoke to the Chief Constable, George Hamilton, about this case back in August. But as yet, no statement from the PSNI. It might come shortly, but certainly nothing as yet. But whoever is responsible for the investigation, Michael Maguire has said this investigation is long overdue and that whatever resources are needed must be made available.
So it's hugely important that, given that these issues have been around for some considerable period of time, that the effort and time and resources are now spent on taking this investigation to the next stage. That means examining those who are responsible for the murders. It means looking at the potential areas for police culpability. And it also means looking at those other agencies who may have been involved in the handling of intelligence in this way.
Now, Seamus, I think given the fact that many of these allegations involve former members of RUC Special Branch, it's likely that the Chief Constable might turn to an outside police force. He might bring in someone else in order to put a stamp of independence on this investigation.
Thanks. With me in the studio, Frank Mulhern and Shauna Moorland. Let's hear from them. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
And also Mark Thompson from Relatives for Justice. First of all, Shauna Moorland, remind us what happened to your mother, Carolyn.
My mum was abducted on the 2nd of July 1994 and held for 15 days and then murdered.
And accused of being what?
Accused of being an IRA informant.
And what do you want to know?
The truth. What really happened. Evidence one way or another whether she was or wasn't an informant. And people that were involved in her murder to be held accountable.
And Frank Mulhern, what happened to your son Joe?
My son was taken away and held for 10 days by the IRA. And just like Shauna, I'm looking truth and justice as well, which I think we are both entitled to. I'd also like to say, Mark, we're not doing this just for ourselves. We're doing this for all the victims of collusion, not just for ourselves. And I believe there's a serious case of collusion here.
Shauna, how do you respond to today's announcement from Baron McGrory, referring to the alleged involvement of an agent codenamed Stakeknife?
It's a step forward. We welcome the news, but we would like an independent investigation from an international team rather than PSNI.
Well, we just heard Vincent County suggest that it's likely that the Chief Constable here will refer this to an outside police force. How would you view that?
I think that's what needs to happen. Do you think too many members of the police force here would have been involved in some of the murders?
Do you agree with that, Frank Mulhern?
Well, when you say there the Chief Constable may refer to an outside police force, does he mean outside the north of Ireland, England, Scotland or Wales? Because if that's the case, I can't see it being of any benefit to people looking justice, to people looking the truth. It needs to be an international team of police, someone who are not connected with the PSNI or any other British intelligence agency here.
What do you mean by an international
Well, it
force
needs to be. My own hope would be it'd be policemen from other EEC countries who'd be totally free from any pressure from the security services here in the north of Ireland.
Because, Shauna, you said that you believe the state and the IRA are equally responsible for your mother's murder.
Yeah, I believe the state. One made the bullet and one fired it. I believe that if she was an informant, her handlers would have been able to step in and save her. And if she wasn't an informant, Stakeknife handlers would have knew what was happening. There was also a police report done on missing on my mummy that was never investigated. She was reported as a missing person. So where was that investigation?
I just wonder what you felt today. Had you any inkling that this was coming?
No. But it's good. It's good news. We're happy about it. We welcome it.
Does it bring it all back yet again? What happened?
It's always brought back no matter what anything comes up about the case, but it never goes away anyway. You're always thinking of her and always thinking of it. It's. I think Frank would agree. They're always with us, and it doesn't go away for us. That's why we're campaigning for it.
But exactly, do you believe that part of what has brought this about is that you have spoken out?
Yeah, I think it helps now because they realise that people aren't going to go away and be quiet. They tried to play us off with a stigma that our family members were alleged informants, and there was a stigma attached to that.
And what do you mean by stigma?
They're kind of the forgotten people in the conflict. They were classed as traitors to their people and their community, and that isn't the case.
And the whole family was branded in that way.
Yeah.
Frank?
No, I would agree with everything Shauna said. A number of occasions I would get into fisticuff rows over what happened with son with different people from the area in which I lived, But to me, my son's my son. He's dead now. He died a very, very violent death. And it was a death that he didn't need to die, because one of the jewel in the crown of intelligence agencies here in the north of Ireland knew all about it and talking Stakeknife. There must have been other RUC informants there must have been. He could have said where my son was being held. They may very well even have known that he was going to be taken away by the IRA before he was actually taken away. And there must have been other people there, as in Shauna's mum's case, there must have been other people there who were working for the RUC Special Branch or the Free organisation or MI5 or whatever, who knew what was going to happen. They must have reported to their handlers, and their handlers done nothing.
So what questions do you want answered?
Well, number one, I want justice for my dad's son. Number two, I want the involvement of the state security forces brought to light. Hopefully I would want to get the people who covered up my son's murder and Shauna's mum's murder and a lot of other murders. I would want them to face the court, the same as I would have to face the court, or you would have to face the court if you murdered or had colluded in any part of someone's murder.
Shauna, there will be a continuing police ombudsman investigation. There'll be a separate investigation, as we've been suggesting, likely to be an outside group or force of some kind. How confident are you of any of this providing justice for you?
If it's an outside investigation, I am confident that we'll get some sort of justice. That's our aim, our hope is for justice. If we didn't believe we would get justice, we wouldn't be campaigning for it. We have to believe that there will be some sort at the end of it. And
Mark Thompson, how confident are you? How much hope do you have of justice flowing from these inquiries?
Well, I think, Seamus, it's firstly important to say that Relatives for Justice support the Moorland and the Mulhern family, as we do many other families. The Director talked about 24 families today, 24 instances. We're working with 9 families who are private and they're engaging with the Ombudsman at various levels. So it is a sensitive issue, and they're in their homes and they've received letters today and phone calls. So first of all, it's important to say that the 24 families, and we need to think of them, we think there could be upwards of 40 families. And the key issue here is the issue of preventability. If the person identified as Stakeknife, and we all, Fred Scabatici is the person identified.
Well, he denies having been an agent.
Well, of course he would say that. But the reality is that the focus on his activities is also a focus on the state who ran him, MI5, the Secret Service, and the Force Research Unit, British Army Intelligence. In the course of probably the murder of up to 40 people, culpability rests with the agent handlers who knew every step of what would happen. Shauna's mummy went missing for 15 days. Frank's son went missing for 10 days. During that period, missing person reports were filed with the police. The agents involved in all of this would have provided that information back to their handlers, and yet, in many instances, from the late 70s right through, people were killed.
Well, that's the point. We've had the Stevens reports. Now we're told that a police ombudsman's inquiry has resulted in this being passed to the DPP. There will now likely be an outside investigation. Will any of this reveal the truth? It's been going on for so long.
Well, I asked the Chief Constable publicly at a Failure and Phobal event in West Belfast in August.
Publicly reveal the truth. That's the important thing.
I asked him would he publish the Stevens report. We wrote to Barra McGrory over a year ago in relation to the Stevens report and asked him, in light of De Silva, would he review the reopening of the Stevens inquiry. I think ultimately what we're looking at here is a movement forward. There is huge resistance at the highest levels within the British government in London and the intelligence community. And I think an element of it would be to throw Special Branch to the wolves in some sense. And I think we've seen that with Raymond White talking about what happened in Downing Street with agent handling involved in criminality and murder.
Well, we don't want to go into detail over which we can stand and of which we have no knowledge. But what's the general point you're making briefly?
Well, the general point is we're at a tipping point in terms of accountability. The families want accountability. The accountability goes to the highest level of the British government. In London, the people in Britain need to understand that if you had a phone hacking scandal and you could get an inquiry, why can't, when scores of people have been murdered and the people effectively making the bullet, as Shauna says, and pulling the trigger are the British government, why can't we have an investigation into that? The families don't have confidence in the PSNI's ability. Westminster itself recently said through the Human Rights Committee that even the legacy investigation branch of the PSNI wasn't Article 2 compliant.
Right.
You need to have an effective and partial investigation to which all the families can have trust and confidence in, and that's the next step of where this needs to be.
A last word from both you and Frank. Shauna, are you thinking any differently tonight from what you were or how you were thinking last night?
I'm a bit more positive. and fighting justice for my mummy and the other family member and the other families.
And Frank?
Well, I'm obviously, I'm a bit more upbeat than what I was, We all realise there's a long, hard slog in front of us. And for those at the top of the intelligence agencies, we can tell you now, we will not give up.
Frank Mulhern, Shauna Moorland, and Mark Thompson from Relatives for Justice. Thank you all very much.
Okay.